My name is Kristensen. I'm on the Visual Studio team, a product manager.
My name is Harshada Hole.
It has a bunch of new features in it, but some features are not new. They've been around for years and years, sometimes decades, yet we might not know that they exist. But if we did know they exist, we would be super happy because we would be more productive and we could get more done, and we can maybe impress our colleagues too with some cool tips and tricks, like some hidden things. That's what we're going to look at now. I'm number 2, yeah, okay. So let's dig in here, and oh no, that looks horrible. Can you even see what's going on the screen here? It's all weird, right? Yeah, so this is what happens sometimes when we're joining like Teams meetings and want to share our screen or something. It's like, oh man, this is the layout I use for my ultra-wide 49-inch, OLED thing. I don't have one of those, but if I had, I would have like something that wouldn't work in a Teams meeting or a Zoom call. So how do I get out of this situation? Well, let's change it to something else. Like, what about, yeah, it's kind of better. What about this? No, not really. This is what I actually use at home on my slightly wide monitor. But here we are. Okay. So this is a feature called saved windows layout. Saved window layout. And it allows me to store presets of where I keep my tool windows. And if you take a look at the lower right corner down here, you can see that it shows you the different keyboard shortcuts. It's an extension called the shortcut presenter. So every time I do a keyboard shortcut, you can see it there, so you can kind of keep track of what I'm doing. I'm changing to a different keyboard layout now, like that. Control Alt, and of course it doesn't always have. Here we go. Control Alt number 4 is this particular layout, and Control Alt 1 is my default. So the way I do that is that I take my windows, I drag them around. So if I take Solution Explorer here, say, no, I want Solution Explorer to be docked on this side of the screen right here, and I want to save that. Or maybe I have 2 monitors and I want some of my windows to be on, tool windows to be on my secondary monitor. I can do that, and then when I'm ready to save it, I will go to Window and click Save Window Layout, and I can give it a name, any name. And of course, I've done that many times. And so I have a whole bunch right here. And they automatically have a keyboard shortcut associated with it. So a little nifty tip here. This is not new. How many people knew about this? 1? 2? All right. Well, that's great. I feel like we're getting somewhere. This is fantastic. And it's like, oh no, I didn't want that. So I'm just going to Control Alt 1 to go back to where it was. There we go. You notice here I was dragging a tool window. Have you ever been debugging, for instance, or something like that, and accidentally dragged a tool window? Has that happened? Okay, everybody here. So that's really annoying, right? And now I have to put it back. But that takes a while and it's annoying. And I was in the middle of doing something, right? If I hold down the Control key and I double click on where it says Solution Explorer on the header of the tool window, double click, it snaps back to its last docked location. If it's docked and I do the same thing, it jumps back to its last floating location. Hold down the Control key, that's it, all you need. Control key, and then you just double click with the mouse or trackpad or Surface Dial if you're that one person that has that. So properties, just a little trick. That is something I use. It's not really a trick. It's more like maybe you didn't know that you could do it this way. There are some windows that I use, tool windows that I use every now and again that are handy for a moment, and then I don't need to look at them again for a while, for the rest of the day maybe. And one of those is the properties window. For you, it might be something else. But what I do with properties is that I dock it next to Solution Explorer. So it's sitting right here. Because I just have to make a change, and then I just close it down again. And then it goes away. Yeah, so then I can just close out of it, and then I don't have to look at it again. So just a little thing, you could do that with your windows. They always appear in the same place they were last. You might also notice that I don't have a toolbar. It's not there because I don't need it for most of my work. Sometimes I do need it, but most of the time I don't need it, and so I like to just get rid of it. It's like, it feels nice. It feels kind of zen. let me just, let's just get it here. So I'm going to go and just add the standard toolbar. So now it's there. That's the default, right? You can change whatever you want with these toolbars, any toolbar, right? So if there's items you don't want, like undo and redo, like I have a feeling you know the shortcut for undo. So do you need the icon in the toolbar, or can you like clean it up a little bit? I came to the conclusion that I know the shortcuts of everything that's there, so I can just get rid of the whole thing. So that you can take it to that extreme, if you will. But you can customize even further. So you can come into the standard toolbar, and one of the things that I like to do is I want to add a new command, and I can find them all in here. And one of the ones that I usually always put out there is the options. So I can find any command. There's about 4,000 commands. Tools, options, yeah. Now where did that go? In the top, so I'll move it down. And if I zoom out, by the way, you should be able to see it. You see it's moving? Look in the standard toolbar. Can you see it? I want it all the way over here, there. So now I have tools options right there from the standard toolbar. So that's kind of handy, right? For those commands that you use often enough that you want to look at them and have them handy with the mouse right there. So here's something that I want to show you because I think it's cool Visual Studio can do this. Whether you're going to use this or not, I would let that be up to you. I don't know personally what the use case is, but what if you want the toolbar, any toolbar, instead of being on top, but you want it to be on the left side of the screen? Look at that. So we can dock toolbars at the bottom, to the left, to the right. Maybe we have a screen monitor set up, something that makes it a good idea. I've never seen anyone do it. So if you do that, you also do vertical tabs. So if you come up here over right here, you can say place tabs on the left. So now they go away from the top and they come out here. I only have one file open, so there's just one here. So you can get even more, use more of your horizontal space, right? To gain more back of your vertical. Let me move that back. Any questions for any of this? Somewhat useful, a little useful, maybe, a few knots, all right.
So those were some of the great tips even I didn't know about. When I was prepping for this session, I thought the best thing to ask is the engineers on our team to see what features they use, which are not so common, but that saves them a lot of time. So I have some features which are suggested from the engineers of my team, and some of them I came up with my own, or just found, which are not very common. So I'm going to go back a little bit into the diagnostic side because that's my favorite topic in Visual Studio. Okay, before I start, I want to ask you a question. How do you open a project in Visual Studio? Like whenever you're opening a project in Visual Studio, how do you guys open it? What do you guys use to open it? File Explorer, but what file do you use? Solution file or like a CSproj file? Do you know you can also use an EXE to open in Visual Studio, and you can open an EXE as a project? I have this EXE, which I already opened. Let me go back here. Okay, so I have this EXE called Bouncy Circles. It's like a simple UI app, and I opened that as a project in my Visual Studio. So I just went to New Solution, and instead of opening a solution file, I open a EXE file. I can't just open that file. I can actually open that file, debug that file, and if I want to profile that file, I can profile it too. So imagine the scenario where you don't have your solution file, you only have an EXE file. It might need a couple more like the symbol files to load completely, but you should be able to open just an EXE file and walk through it or debug through it as you're debugging your any solution. So I'm just going to go ahead and start it as I'm debugging. And it's like a name suggests, it's like a bouncy circle with just bounce here and there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break here. And if I break here, it should decompile the files associated, the symbols associated with it, and I should be able to debug through this. I can also use an EX or open an EXE in my profiling tools and profile them as well. So when you open or launch your profiling tools, you can actually, instead of a starter project, you can open an EXE and then profile that as well. So again, a very small tip here in case if you wanted to do an EXE as a project instead of solution as a project. Now, I have this application running here already. Let's stop here. I want to show you something else. So let me just add just a little bit here. I'm going to start this application again. And as you see, because I'm already in the Visual Studio, I'm already starting this application. The process here is already attached to it. What I can do is I can actually go to a Windows and go to Processes, Debug Windows, and then Processes. And in case if you wanted to run your application without attaching to the debugger, you can go to the Processes window and just detach a process. I don't know the scenario, but I thought it would be cool to know that in case if you wanted to detach a process while you're debugging, you can actually do that. I want to show you something else though. Imagine when you have like a lot of different things running on your machine and you wanted to find an exact process or exact EXE which you wanted to attach to the debugger. What you can do is you can go to a Attach to Process dialog, and there is something called a track window. How many have you already used a track window before? Or do you know it? Perfect. So what the track window do is it actually, as the name suggests, you can actually track any UI on your system or your monitor. This is a little difficult to show it here. And if I click on it, it will actually attach to the process associated with it. For this, it's the same process, the bouncy circle. So I don't have to go and find the process directly. I can just track it to the window or the UI application running, and then it's easy to find the process in that list. Also, in the Attach to Process dialog, one thing I really like to use is this tree view. So if you're trying to find something, the tree view gives more detailed structure, so you can easily find the process you need to instead of just list view. Again, because if I stop my debugging now, I already attached to this process. Now, if I want to go and attach to this process again, I don't have to go through all of these steps again. What I can just do is go to the debug and to reattach to process. It's a simple way to just attach to the previous process which was attached. It also stays between the Visual Studio sessions, so you don't have to go and find the process again. And once I do that, I'm already attached to the process directly. So these were just some of the snifty tips when you are actually dealing with attaching the process or just debugging and trying to attach the process.
Here's another thing, right? I'm starting to present, and can you read this? No, probably not, right? I get that, yeah, down there. So how do I make the font larger in Visual Studio? It would be really cool if I had a full-size keyboard, so I had a numpad, because I'm using an extension here called Font Sizer. And I'm just going to show you, to be fair, the demo is much better if I use the keyboard shortcut. But since I don't have a numpad, I don't have a keyboard shortcut that will work. But what I can do is I can go to Tools, Font Sizer, and I can increase editor font size. So it doesn't zoom, right? Zoom is still 100%. It literally goes in and changes the font size. Another cool thing is that I can do it with the environment font size too. So that's the window, the tool things. It's the Solution Explorer text, all that stuff. So very easily I can like increase and decrease the font size. Yes?
You know you wrote extensions, but does it also, I notice it doesn't update the GitHub window. Is that a limitation of Visual Studio, or is that super common?
So the question is, it doesn't, this extension does not increase the font size of the Copilot chat window. Is that, coming? Yeah, let's make that happen. So it's because not all tool windows use the environment font, which is what the environment is, the menu, it's a Solution Explorer, but a lot of tool windows, they don't have that. So yeah, that's just something I need to add to that extension. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. Let's make the size here a little bigger. There, let's just do one more. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to add a file. How would I do that? I would right-click my project. I would say add new item, right? We've all done that. It gives us this thing. Let's say I want to add a C# class. So I could come in here and, class, it's fine. But actually, I don't want a class. I want an interface. So if I use the class template, it's going to give me a internal class, whatever. And then I have to change it to an interface. what if it was a JSON file? What if it was something else? Now I have to like find that template in here. So what I can do instead, actually I could do it from here too if I go to new item. In the bottom it says show compact view, brings us in here. I want the template view, so I go back here. If I want to use that compact view, always I can just do Shift F2. Okay, so Shift F2 always brings this into this particular mode, so you don't have mix them up. So I always use Shift F2, and in here I can do something like ifoo. Ifoo is an interface, right? Because we know that from the naming convention. That's just how I've agreed that anything starting with a capital I, in this case, is an interface. So let's look at what it is. It's an actual interface, but we don't have a template for interface. Yet it knew that this was an interface. If I were to do a class, in this case foo, it would give me a class because it's doesn't have the capital I in front of it. But what if I want to say I want my class name to be inside a folder called folder, because why not? And that's bar. I can do it like this. So now I got a folder called folder with a file called bar in it. Well, that's kind of neat. Let's say I'm editing bar. Right, so I'm in this one now. I hit Shift F2. Nothing in Solution Explorer was selected. My focus was on the editor window. So now I'm going to add Baz. Where does it put it? Where would you expect it to go? Same. It goes in the folder I was in. My focus was on this particular file in the editor. So when I create a new file, it's like implicitly saying, yeah, you want that in the same place. Had I gone in here and selected a different folder or the project and hit Shift F2, it would honor the active window Solution Explorer selection of that folder and do it right in there. What if I want like cat cs, comma, hat.cs? It's a weird name, except there were two names. So it gives me two files. So that's kind of nice. So this one is called Quick Add Files. It started out as an extension, and we rolled it in 2022. How many people here know about this? There's a handful of people. All right, all right.
Will it expand to do enums and structs and renders?
Will it expand to do other types than just interfaces like enums and structs? No, because there's no naming conventions that make that an implicit kind of thing, right? If there was, we could totally add it. Yeah. The extension actually had it so that it would go even further. If you added like a package.json, it would know, oh, that's a npm file. We know how to scaffold that in a certain way. Or like there are certain file names that always will become a certain thing. So we could do stuff like that too. But this is kind of generic except for the interface. Yeah. Okay, so I have all these files. I move between them, and then you have, all your projects. You might have like tens of projects or hundreds of projects sometimes. If you work on Chromium or Edge, you have 10,000 projects. So it can be a little bit hard to figure out that file I'm editing right now in the editor, where is it in Solution Explorer? Like if I were to find that file. So if you hit Control, and then what is that called? Open bracket and S. I'll just zoom in on it. This shortcut, Control, open bracket S. It will find it and highlight it in Solution Explorer. I'm going to do it with ifoo here. Control, open bracket S. And you see the selection change in Solution Explorer. You could also set this up. There's a setting for it. So if you go to Tools Options, you could even go in and say, hey, I want this to just always be a thing. So if you search for track, we can see here, track active item in Solution Explorer. If this is checked, every time you navigate between open documents, it will always highlight the current one in Solution Explorer. Now, if you have 10,000 projects, you can imagine that this might take a little bit of processing power to like find things in the tree view, right? That's why it's not on by default. If you don't have like hundreds of projects, you're fine. Enable this. It's a good thing. I've been trying to get the team to do it, and they're like, no. Telemetry says that it's going to slow us down by like a millisecond for like certain things or whatever, so we can't do it. Like, okay. What's the difference between hat and cat? Let's find out. I'm going to just select two files, right-click, compare selected. And it shows us exactly that the difference here is just those two words. We added this, you asked for it for a long time, and I don't know why Visual Studio never had this feature until kind of recently. It was never easy to compare two files, and so there was an extension for it, and eventually we built it in. So if you haven't seen it's there, If I only select one file, I can say compare with, and then I can compare with whatever I want, okay? It just opens up any file I can find. So that makes it a lot easier than having to go always use beyond compare or something like that for these things. Yes, sir?
Can you move changes left or right?
Can you move changes left or right? No, it just shows the diff. It's not the merge view.
Let's go back to some diagnostics. I want to show you something around my breakpoints window here. How many of you know that you can actually import and export your breakpoints file? So I don't have a lot of breakpoints. Like, you can actually import and export your breakpoints using this import and export button. And when you import and export them, it actually maintains a status. So for example, I have these couple of breakpoints groups here. I have an other and a demo group. If I import or export that, it will actually maintain it. So it's super easy to share those files if you wanted to share with someone else. I have this demo breakpoint here. If I right click it and if I do set as default breakpoint group, now if I add any other new breakpoints, it will actually automatically get added to that particular breakpoint group. So it makes it more easier. If you don't have breakpoint groups and you wanted to start that structure, I think it is easy to do that when you do a set breakpoint group. Or you're just working on a particular issue and you want breakpoints for that particular issue, or like debugging that particular one, you can just set it as a default one and all those breakpoints will get added to that. This is a super simple application. I'm just have some bunch of for loops in here. So I wanted to show you something called a hit count. How many of you know the hit count? Okay, couple folks here. So you see here I have this for loop. Now if I start my debugging, it has some count, which I don't know what the count is. I will go and loop through that at each and every iteration. Now imagine I have a scenario where I only wanted to stop at this particular breakpoint when the I is 5 or I is 6 at particular iteration. What I can do is I can go to settings and then go to conditions and then select hit count, and then I can give a number where I want that particular breakpoint to hit. So in a simple way, hit count, it will just go and hit at the 5th iteration now. Another way you can actually improve your breakpoints is by adding some logging information to that. So I think I talked in my previous session too, you can actually use logpoint to log certain kind of information. Now you can go to actions and then write your message here. But if you actually place or click the $, it gives you certain kind of information, some specifier which can help you log detailed information like say PID or a particular function name if you're interested in. Because I just set an hit count, I'm just going to go with the hit count here. I'm going to stop and let's start debugging here. And what I'm expecting that this for loop will only hit at I is equal to 5, and then it will also log that PID specifier which I defined. So perfect. So I'm guessing the I here is going to be, it's a 5th iteration. I was already 4. So we hit the breakpoint at the 5th iteration, and in the output window, because I logged the PID with the specifier, I'm getting the 5th iteration PID as well. So again, super handy way to, when you have a specific scenario or you wanted to have the breakpoint hit at a particular iteration. Now, how many of you have used dependent breakpoints before? So dependent breakpoints are breakpoints which you want to hit at when another breakpoint is going to hit. So for example, I have this breakpoint on line 18. Now I want my breakpoint on line 26 to hit only when the the breakpoint on 18 is hit, because I already have this as an advanced breakpoint. So the breakpoint on 26 will only hit if I is equal to 5. So what I can do is I can go to settings and then select this particular checkbox here, only enable when the following breakpoint is hit, and select the breakpoint from the breakpoints list. Or what I can do is I can hold my breakpoint and just move to the breakpoint I want to make a dependent on. Now I'm already in a debugging session, but let's try it again. I was already in the debugging session. So if I do that, you will see this breakpoint will be disabled until this breakpoint is hit. So again, if you wanted to have any chain scenario you wanted to investigate, this will be a very handy way. So if I start my debugging, this breakpoint on line 26 will only get enabled and will hit if this breakpoint on 18 is hit, because we made that on dependent. If you see, this particular breakpoint on 18 has a lot of things. It has a condition, it has an action, it's also a dependent breakpoint for that. Now, what if I delete this breakpoint by mistake like this? I might lose everything which I added, but I can just get that all thing back by Ctrl Z or undo. So when you do undo, all of your breakpoint advanced settings actually comes back too. So the undo works for the breakpoints as well. These were some of the breakpoint tips. Now, let me go back here again. Stop debugging. I'm going to move this breakpoint to a normal breakpoint again. Remove this and continue my debugging. Okay. So do you ever had to debug, like sometimes you have a statement where you have multiple calls, like this unnecessary complicated statement I created here, which have multiple calls. Now, if you wanted to debug a particular function or a call in here, what you can do is you can place a breakpoint at there and right click and go to step into specific. I need to hit that first. Right click and go step into specific, and then select a particular function in your multi-call statement which you wanted to investigate or which you wanted to hit. So for example, if I select calculate discount, it will bring me to the calculate discount. So again, a handy way to see if you have those multiple statement at the one line, you can do specific or debug a specific one using the step into specific statement. One more thing I wanted to show you is when you wanted to investigate the data, or when you wanted to invest using visualizer. So I have this breakpoint here on 26. I'm going to start my debugging. I have this order function, order list here. So if I wanted to investigate this data, what I can do is I can use this view button and investigate that using this INumerable visualizer. I don't want it to do that. Okay. So you can, again, filter the data, or like however you wanted to analyze the data, you can do that. But do you know you can actually open multiple visualizers at the same time if you wanted to investigate or do some more complex investigations? So I have this visualizer here. If I wanted to go and open this text visualizer, come on, I can open that at the same time as well. So I can open multiple types of visualizer at the same time. And if I continue my debugging, it will show me the real changes in both those visualizers. This is not showing anything because it has all the data. But imagine if you have a different data, you should be able to visualize and have those visualizers at the same time and make that investigation much more easier. These were some of the demos. I also have some of the settings we should know when you're debugging. So I'm going to go ahead and place my breakpoint again here. How many of you use data tips to investigate your data? Like when you're debugging, have you ever used the data tips like this? Okay, so when you use your data tips, if you move your cursor away, if you wanted to see what is a ID for order 1, when you're trying to see that and by mistake you move your cursor away, the data tips goes away. If you want your data tips to stay there until you click, you can do that using the debug option, and you can just go in to clicked, and there is a setting for that which says keep expanded data tips open until clicked away. So now when I do that, it will not go until I click away. So in case if you wanted to see particular data, that's super handy to do that. Another settings I wanted to show you is that, like, I'm debugging right now. I have my console open here. Now, if I stop my debugging, my console window is still open. Or if I have a web browser, that will be still open. If you want your console to close every time when you debug, you have a setting for that as well. You go to options and then go ahead, select console, and it has a setting called automatically close the console when debugging stop. So now if I start my debugging again, I have a console open, I'm going to stop, and I won't have one from the previous one, but you'll see I only have one, not the 2 one. So again, a handy way to just like not go and click every time or close your console every single time. I think those were all the things I had.
I want to open, let's go to this SQL file here. Let's say I want to copy some stuff. I want to copy this, and I also want to copy this. You know, how do I do that? Control Alt, and then click. Control Alt, and then click. And that's how you get multi-cursors in Visual Studio. That's one way of doing it. There are so many different ways of doing that, actually. Check this out. This is something we added in 2026. It says that we have 3 selections, and it will even tell you how many characters in each of the selections and how many lines they each contain. So I can just copy that and move into a notepad or whatever was my purpose for doing this. So Control Alt, and then you just click anywhere. Then there's this, Shift Alt, creates the box selection. Right, so you can say, oh, only give me the first 11 columns or whatever, and you can copy that. Comes in handy for a lot of things. For instance, if I want to put something in front of each of these lines, I can just Shift Alt and then down arrow, right? And then I can comment it out. What's a comment character in SQL? Dash dash. So that's kind of handy. But of course, I could also do that. You know, if you do Control Alt, I can place it in just in front of the if here. Control Alt and then just click, not selection. But now it's only those lines, right? Yeah. Now that we're down here. So here we got it'll show you, this is the Windows encoding, but you can like save with a UTF-8 or whatever. So you can see what kind of encoding you're dealing with nowadays. Speaking of the margin, we go in here. Does anyone know what this paintbrush is down here? Does anyone use it? Code cleanup. 1, 2, 3, handful, okay. So code cleanup is one of my absolute favorite things. And the reason I bring it up is because we know that you don't use it. So I think it's definitely worth sharing here. Code cleanup is something that for C# and C++ or .NET and C++ is, we'll take all the different analyzers, you've got all the code fixes that are available and apply them when you run it. And if we click this thing and say configure code cleanup, we get a kind of an idea of what's going on. We got 2 profiles, profile 1 and profile 2. You don't want to add more, it's not really needed. Up top is all the selected code fixes that are available. There's a lot, like remove unused using statements, format the document. That's a nice kind of code cleanup thing. Profile 2 is the default. This is not the default in that sense, but it has the default values that you get out of the box if you've never configured anything. It looks like this. So by default, it just it does 4 things. But you can like select anything down here and move it up or move things back down again. So you can have it do whatever you want to do. And it will read from your editor config file or your settings files, wherever you have any settings of, for instance, it will fix do you use var, the keyword, or do you do explicit types? That's like a coding standard that you decided with your team, right? And so you put that in your editor config file so it roams with your repo. So everyone does the same thing, and this will honor that. So you can have that executed whenever you either just hit the button down there, like click the icon, or hit Ctrl-K-E. What happened was you saw it got formatted, so these extra white spaces disappeared, and this unnecessary using statements went away. Ctrl-K-E. That's kind of neat. That was my default profile, Let's see here what I've set it up to do, which is even cooler. If I come in my settings, and I search for cleanup, I can have it automatically go by when I save, and I can decide, do you want profile 1 or profile 2 to execute when you save the document. Now, I use Ctrl-S, I think everybody here does, right? So it's like, we do that, it's like muscle memory, Ctrl-S. You don't have to learn the Ctrl-K-E if you want to do it this way. Now, the way I like to do it, the way I think is the best way of doing it, for me at least, is instead of running all those fixers, because you can imagine sometimes it can take like a second to run if you have a lot of rules, maybe it's a large file and all that, and Ctrl-KS has to be quick. That's why I have it set to profile 2, which if you remember was my, let's show it here again, was my simple one that only contained 4 things. Instead of profile 1, which runs everything, I only want to run like, let's say these here important ones. So now, if I just save Ctrl-KS, it removed those using statements, it formatted the document. Very nice, right? That's really cool, and you can set it up for your whole team, not just for yourself. Everybody has to on their team, if they want it happening automatically when you hit Control S or save the file, they have to enable that for themselves. It's a personal preference thing, but at least the rules that applies are the same for your whole team. So that's nice. So someone was mentioning earlier today that it was so nice we added a new keyboard shortcut, Control /. What does Control / do? Comment. And if I hit it again, it will uncomment. This is one of those things where everybody in the world, except for Visual Studio, had this keyboard shortcut for the longest time. And Visual Studio had the Control-KC, Control-KU, comment, uncomment, right? I will say though, Visual Studio was first. The Control / I don't think was like an industry standard in 1997, but we caught up, let's say. We're like, okay, let's also add this. Yeah, I think ours is kind of nice because we take it a little step further. If you hit Control Shift /, you get that multi-line comment, right? So that's kind of cool. So if we do multi-line, Control Shift, like that. So this works in all the languages that support line comments and block comments, CSS, HTML, and whatnot. Yes, sir?
Does that work when you select?
Yeah.
If you selected just at the moment, the Control Shift / just come in.
Yeah, if you don't select anything and hit Control, like I do here, it's the line. It's a line comment. Yeah. If you select something and hit Control S, it's still a line comment, right? So it doesn't matter where you do it because it's the whole line. That's the name of the command that you execute. It's comment the line.
Right, but if you did
Control Shift, just do the block that you selected. If I don't select anything and hit Control Shift, it just puts an empty comment right there.
And that'll work. Will that work with if you're doing this silly thing where you select a box of text? Will it do that for all the lines of the box of text?
This is awesome. Let's just stress test this thing.
In debugging instinct, I've got to ask.
Yes.
Do something really dumb for no reason.
This is that meme with like the QA that does something completely unexpected, right? Breaks our code. Okay, what do you say? Control Shift, like we do the. Okay, okay, quiz. Why did it do one per line?
Because it doesn't get the ends along. Because it's like, hold on.
Treat them individually.
Yes.
Like C, can embed.
It can embed, yeah.
I mean, you're continuing on a separate line, so if you logged out the whole thing, you'd be logging out.
Exactly. And so the answer came over here. It's because they're seen as individual selections. They're just lumped together, so they look like one block. But so when we say box comments, it's not a box. It's literally, well, it is, but it's like each line independently. So that's why what you see down here says two selections. This was great. Good stress testing. So let's do a little quiz. The weirdest shortcut I know in Visual Studio, the most obscure, and let's see if you can guess what this does. Control Shift Alt F12 twice. Anyone? Reattach? Nope. Good guess.
Reattach is
Shift
Shift F9.
F9 for reattach. Thank you. Oh, okay. No, it's pretty useless to be, but it's force garbage collection on Visual Studio itself. Yeah. So because Visual Studio runs in its own app domain and all that, so you can call garbage collection on the process itself, and that's Control Alt Shift F12 twice. We did some other ones. So, we've been trying to take all these industry standard stuff and get into Visual Studio because, it's not like, Visual Studio, we were told, hey, you're not doing this, everybody else is doing it. It's like, yeah, but we did it first. They came up with some other keyboard shortcut and now you're blaming us. Like, why didn't you tell them to adopt ours? But things are the way they are and we can't change the world in that way. So we have to adapt, right? And so you go between VS and VS Code. People do that all the time, for instance, or Sublime or whatever other IDEs and editors. And so we want that to be kind of easy, that the muscle memory travels between those different things. So one of the things we did was that Control / for commenting out stuff. We just did another one. Control P opens code search. Yeah, this is like in VS Code. Control P opens the code search. So now we do that too. We alias that as well. What is one of the features that we are always asked to implement in VS that VS Code has is the command palette. Anyone here wants the command palette? Is that like a thing? People are like, yeah, I'll take it. No one. Okay, great. But it happens to be that we have kind of a command palette already. It's your search. And it allows you to find the commands and execute commands. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of that in Visual Studio. And it's Control Q, but in VS Code, it's not Control Q. It is Control Shift P. But Control Shift P has been mapped, so we now do the exact same thing here. So we're trying to do these type of things where we make that easier, right? So we have a bunch of those, and often you don't even notice. Isn't that cool, by the way? That's the Visual Studio 2026 wallpaper. If you go to visualstudiowallpapers.com, you can download this thing. All right, you have a bunch of files open. We can only show a certain amount of files up here in the what we call the doc well. It's called the doc well, where we have all the tabs. And so I may want to come in and show tabs in multiple rows sometimes to see them all. But I don't want to look at it all the time because what if I have 100 files open? Then that's going to take up how many vertical space, right? So I want it to just come and go when I need it and not anywhere else. Instead of me having to go in here and do this, I have a trackpad, so it's not as smooth. But if I had a mouse, I would have a scroll wheel, right? So if I scroll, I can expand and collapse. So you know this maybe from Chrome or Edge or whatever browser where you have a billion tabs open and you want to be able to scroll between them. You use the scroll wheel. You take the mouse over the tab well and you scroll. Same thing here, but the Visual Studio ism of that is to show multiple lines, but the muscle memory carries over. Here's another very hidden feature. We just did this the other day. You scroll your file, you scroll up and down. You can, oh yeah, we added this. If you hold down the shift and you scroll, it scrolls horizontally. Like, do I have a file that shows that? I have a folder of test files. Do you have one of those? Nope. No, that doesn't do it. Okay, anyway, if you hold down the shift key and you scroll, it scrolls sideways. But if you do something that we just did, is if you hold down Alt and you scroll, it scrolls 5 times as fast. So it's kind of like your page up, page down, but in your scroll wheel. So just hold down Alt and get that done. That's something we got from VS Code. I think other editors are doing it as well. Not the most useful feature, except if it's in your muscle memory, right? And so some of these features we can't always justify to prioritize because we know not that many people are going to discover them or find them useful. So the reason why this came in is because we actually asked the coding agent to build it for us, because it's such a simple thing that is like, yeah, that's a perfect task to get to the AI coding agent, and it did a great job. And so now it's in 2026. So this is a Visual Studio extension, and just it doesn't really matter what it is. Could be any project. You always have stuff that's like in your repo, but it's not in your solution, like a README file or your, DevOps or GitHub files or Git ignore, a bunch of things that you need to access every now and again, but it's not. You don't want to add it to your solution. So I'm going to show you an extension here called File Explorer. It's been here the whole time. You haven't noticed it. It's been hiding right here. When you install it, you'll always see when you open a solution that it gives you a node that either goes up to where your solution root is, or if it's a Git repository, it'll find your .git folder, and that will be the root. And it will show you that folder right here. And if you open it, it shows you every single file that you've got. It will even show you things that are like grayed out because they've been Git ignored. It will show you things in like the right. I think it's kind of neat, right? This is the Visual Studio icon or logo, yeah. Because it knows about these unknown folders, if you want. So you can find your GitHub, your Copilot instructions file is right here. You can add it very, very easily. What's really handy is that you have repos where you have all your code, but what if you also then want to have your documentation in the same Solution Explorer, but it lives in a different repo somewhere else? You can always go into the solution here and say add existing folder. It adds the existing folder, and you can point it at any folder. Blue Steel. Let's do Blue Steel. Any Zoolander fans? And so now I got that folder right here. And I can come in and I can open any file, right? If I have my README files or whatever, I can come in and edit the markdown right here. So super helpful for all those things. It's called File Explorer. File Explorer. That's the theme of all my, the way I name extensions is that I'm not very creative. I just name them what they do. Except for this next one. This is the case where you have websites or you build apps that has images, WPF, WinForms, anything that has images that you ship as part of your binaries or part of your deployment. It used to be, back before JavaScript exploded, back when I was a web developer, that 80% of any website's weight was in images, like what the browser has to download to display your full website. Nowadays, it's probably JavaScript or it's 50-50 or something. But it's a huge part of it. It can be megabytes, right, for your front page. So it's in everybody's interest to always have the images as small as possible. There are still parts of the world that pay by megabyte on their bandwidth on their phones or whatever. So it's also out of respect to our users that we want to keep our images as small and optimized as possible. But it's hard to remember to do. It's hard to do to begin with as well. But there's a solution to it. Yeah. And it's an extension called Image Optimizer. Because it optimizes images. So here I have a bunch of images. So I can just right-click any folder or any file. Let's take this one. Image Optimizer, and I can optimize for best quality or best compression. Best quality means it's almost lossless, like it doesn't remove anything, like the eye can't tell the difference. But let's just run it. And so it saved me 18%. And I can't tell, like if you were to look at the before and after, you would not be able to tell the difference. I could have come in and done like the other one, which is like optimized for best compression. And in this case, for this particular file, it gave me 11%. Well, it can give you a lot more. There will be a visible difference. Very often, you wouldn't be able to tell. And especially if it's like vector graphics or like just clean lines and stuff, it's not like a JPEG or a photo, you wouldn't be able to tell. You can also do it for the entire folder. Right-click the whole folder, and then it runs. And you can see in the output window here, it actually tells you what it did. So, 14 files optimized. We just shaved off 627 kilobytes. And you can't tell. This was the one that's like, for the one that looks the best, right? Now let's just run it again, and this time these are the same images. I just compressed them for best quality. Let's do it for best compression. That gave us an additional 63%, or over 1 megabyte of savings here. And if I look at these, they still look pretty good. They didn't suffer from this, right?
Does it save the original somewhere, or the originals just convert them entirely, the original's now gone?
Yeah, so it does not save the original. That's what source control is for.
No further questions.
But it's not just the size, right? The way that we optimize the PNGs or the JPEGs. It's also like, hey, don't do like a 2,000 by 2,000 pixel image that you're gonna only show in like a super small little 128 by 128 pixel kind of on your website. Instead, come in and just resize the image. Just change it to let's say 128 by 205. And it will just resize it right there. You don't have to go into Photoshop or whatever. I have one more of these. It's called, how many people here think that they are really good at keyboard shortcuts? For Visual Studio specifically. How many people here think they could benefit from learning more keyboard shortcuts? Everybody. Yeah, me too. I have an extension installed called, this is the one extension I have that is not called what it does. It's called Keyboard Hero. It has the word keyboard in it, I guess. But this keeps track of what you're doing. And then it figures out the things you're doing, did you use a keyboard shortcut to do it or not? And if you didn't, it'll make a little note of it. And then you can come in here and say, oh, you used this, you added a new item manually 10 times. You might be interested in learning the shortcut Ctrl-Shift-A. So it gives you a prioritized list of things that you should learn. And it's just handy. And you notice it wasn't even visible. It was just sitting in the background, like listening in. And you can just bring it out every now and again. And you can edit it, you can open it, you can ignore certain things. If you have an extension that does, whatever, you can massage it a little bit so it's not noisy. But this is a great way for you to learn productivity shortcuts. So what did we not talk about? Huh? Are there any like areas that, show us how to do something cool or something?
Or maybe something you know which we don't.
Yeah, or you give us tips. What's a good tip? What's a good hidden feature?
Is there a shortcut for reopening a tab that you close on accident?
Is there a shortcut for reopening a tab that you closed by accident?
Bullshit teamwork, that's my muscle memory phone. Sure.
That's for browser.
I know, but I'm curious if it works here.
All right.
For custom browser, I think it'll,
Well, what closes a browser tab? Or what's the keyboard shortcut? Ctrl W. Does that work in Visual Studio? No. Who was first with tabs? Browsers or Visual Studio? Ctrl W now closes tabs in 2026. But that was not the question. What if I hit Ctrl W and now I want to reopen? Okay, who said what? Control Shift T? That wasn't it. I lost, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's there. Oh my God. Control KZ. Okay, catchy. Yeah, so it's there. You know how you can change all this stuff, right? Yeah, okay. So if you go in here and do keyboard, boom. You come in here. What did we call it? Reopen, restore. Yikes. Restore close tab. Okay. Let's change that to Control Shift T, was it? Assign. Okay. So now under Window, restore close tab is now Control Shift T. So that's how you do that. And then you tell us, get your act together and change the defaults, please.
No, I get it when there's other things like because just because I know that as my shortcut, if I saw that about something else, and so if you change it, everybody's used to using that shortcut.
All right. But the reason it's important is because you wanna do something, you have a goal, and you know how to do it in other apps. And so if it just happened to work, you would be happier. Visual Studio would be a better product to you. So it's in our interest to make those things happen, right? So please tell us what else. That was a great question down there. Yes, sir. New Git branch? Shortcuts? Oh, snap. I don't know. You don't know either? Everything that is a command can have a keyboard shortcut. New branch. Does it say anything if I do? Is there like sometimes it would say, oh, so the way we find out, is that we do, we go in here and we search for, what did we say? New branch? New branch from work item, that's not exactly it. So this might not have a command actually. But if we do branch, I don't know. Is it one of these? TFS? It's not TFS. Toggle branch, manage branches. Oh man. Oh, create branch. What shortcut should we give it? Let's do something, Control Shift Alt J. Okay, Control Shift Alt J. So now Control Shift Alt J. Boom. Branch name. All right. I think with that, I think we're done. Thank you, everybody.